This is Morgan Freeman. I know that many of you are wondering how soon you'll be able to hug your friends again, or visit your parents and grandparents without fear. I know that many of you are angered by the ongoing racism in our nation and worried about having a job to repay your student loans and afford the basic needs of life. It wasn't long ago that people were beaten and even killed to obtain the same power you have today, the power to vote. And right now, your vote is more critical than ever. This election is about you and me, your family, and my family, our planet, and our democracy in its entirety. With our votes, we, the people, can begin to overwhelm the unjust political and economic systems that favor profits over people, and elect leaders who will take us forward. Brothers and sisters, go vote. Our lives, quite literally, depend on it.
All right, the latest ad from the NAACP just a day before we go to the polls. Good morning, everyone. Make It Plain is on the air, streaming wherever you're watching, and we appreciate you joining us. As promised this morning, we're blessed to be joined by the President and Chief Executive Officer of the NAACP, Derrick Johnson. Derrick is here to give us an update on what's going on, as well as to make the closing argument as to why we all should get out and go vote. Derrick, morning, brother. How are you? Derrick, can you hear me? There we go. Can you hear me, Derrick?
Oh,
yeah.
You ready for me, Mark?
Yeah, I'm ready for you. Can you hear
me?
me?
Hear you.
Oh no. What happened? We lost audio.
Can't hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can't hear anything.
Really? Huh. Hold on. Let's see what's going on here. Well, let's see what's happening. I can hear you at first. I don't know why I can't hear you now.
Yeah, I can't hear. You want me to sign off and sign back on?
Yeah, sign off and sign back in. Okay. That's fine. All right. Folks, we're going to get Derrick back. We'll work it out. Derrick's going to sign off and sign back on. Sorry about that. As we've been saying, I hope that many of you are reaching out to loved ones, making sure that they have voted and are voting. I don't know how many states are still doing early voting today. Probably not as many. Some of them have stopped. And I know it's a tradition for many to vote on the day. So we know they're going to be long lines tomorrow. Get ready, pack a lunch, do whatever you have to do. I think we have him now. Derrick, we got you. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Wonderful, brother. How are you, man?
I'm good. How you doing, Mark?
Fine, brother. It's a great ad with Morgan Freeman. You're in the big time when you got Morgan Freeman doing ads for us.
Well, it shows how important this election is. It is a closing argument. We must vote. Our lives literally depend on it. That's the message we've been saying in NAACP for a while now. Morgan has been a supporter, and I think everyone understands that public policy can either heal people or kill people. And the public policy we have seen over the last 6 months as it relates to the response to a global health pandemic has literally killed 250,000 people.
Mm-hmm. Are you encouraged by the early voting and African-American turnout?
I have been extremely encouraged, whether it's Harris County, Texas, or Wayne County, Michigan, or Philadelphia, but it's still more to go. And let's not rest on the laurels of early voting, because we got to make sure on election day we turn out as big as possible. The early voting numbers could indicate that these are individuals who would have otherwise voted on election day, Therefore, we need to continue the push to make sure we win. We want to win on election night. We want to win on when the early vote count is completed. We want to make sure that this election is so decisive that there are no questions around who will be the next president of the United States.
Um, is the NAACP preparing? Because there's several steps to this. There's people getting out to vote tomorrow, but I think we've already been signaled that they're going to try some suppression tactics, even in the courts on tomorrow and tomorrow night. Will the NAACP legal team be involved in trying to prevent some of those suppression tactics?
Oh, absolutely. We intervene in cases this weekend. We did it all last week. We have filed legal action this past year, more cases, whether we intervene and make briefs or direct legal actions this year than we've done in the last 4 years. We are as engaged up and down our operation around this election as anything else. This is the most consequential election in my personal lifetime. We've never seen this level of racial animus that's open and notorious. This has nothing to do with dog whistle. It is a bullhorn, loud, resounding noise. But also, it is about local elections, district attorney races. The district attorney in Georgia that refused to bring the case against the individuals who murdered Ahmaud Arbery is on the ballot this year and has a challenger. The district attorneys across the country are also on the ballot. We talk about ballot initiatives dealing with everything from education to you name it. You talk about state legislative races, individuals who would determine how political boundary lines are drawn after the release of the census. That's called redistricting. Congressional races, U.S. Senate. Everything is up for grabs right now. It is consequential in the election cycle. And for the NAACP, we have to be all hands on deck and fully engaged.
Black men, Derrick, have been disproportionately targeted for suppression and disinformation. What are your thoughts about that and the impact it may or may not be having on African American men?
So let's be clear, the largest voting bloc within any community, within any party, is the African American voting bloc. The most consistent within the African American community is African American women. And they vote for upwards of 94% the same way. African American men, we vote about 87, 89% the same way. So let's reverse the narrative. Why would any of us be attacked? It's because our votes do matter, because we are such a strong voting bloc. And you cannot find another bloc that votes in such unison as the African American community, male or female. So I commend all of the brothers who are out there pushing to make sure that our voices are heard. I commend the sisters for leading the way, and we should celebrate as we continue to fight the value of the Black vote.
And of course, the NAACP, I've been speaking with some of our sister organizations, Kristen Clark on last night, Barbara Arnwine, I believe, on Saturday. The NAACP also is a part of the coalition and the hotline, folks. So in case you have problems today or tomorrow, or confused or don't know where to vote, you can call that number, 1-800-OUR-VOTE, right, Derrick?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I can recall when the coalition came together in the late 90s to build out that hotline, and it still exists today. For the NAACP, we are partnering with all of our organizations to manage that hotline. But this year, we're doing something unique. We're going to map where the calls are coming in as a way to understand, where the needs are or where the targeting are taking place in terms of vote suppression. We have to use every tool at our hand to ensure the integrity of this election and the protection of the Black vote. That will go on through tomorrow's election when the polls close, but it will continue on through the counting of the ballots that were cast early. Some states would automatically start counting those ballots prior to the opening of the election. Others will count in the middle of the day of the elections, and others will be counting, maybe a week after, because there are so many ballots. And I tell people, if you want to address vote suppression, you must overwhelm the system with legitimate votes cast by citizens in the African American community, because this game is by inches, it's not about miles.
Indeed. Which makes it even more ridiculous when Trump's team says they want to stop the count. Most mail-in ballots are counted in the days after. That's never happened. As a matter of fact, there are a number of Republicans who vote and have voted mail-in. So if they go to court and try to cut off all the counting of the mail-in ballots at midnight tomorrow night, Derrick, they're going to be cutting off some of their own voters.
That tells you it has nothing to do with the integrity of the election for them. It is about winning at all costs. And most unfortunately in that, if you do that, you cut off the vote from militaries who are serving this country abroad. Typically, the last ballots received are from our men and women serving in the armed forces around the globe who vote. They put their ballots in the mail, and it comes in late. And we want to honor those who are on the front line serving this nation so that their voice can be a part of this conversation as they're putting their lives at risk serving this nation and protecting what we hold as an American value system and the democratic principles.
So, folks, Derrick Johnson is president of NAACP, our oldest civil rights organization, the oldest and the boldest. Derrick, we will give you this opportunity now to make your closing argument to everyone as to why they should get out to vote.
Mark, I would love for you to show the video, because I think the video really encapsulates why this election is so important. Public policy is driven by those who serve as policymakers, and those individuals are elected by the voters, and the voters bring to the conversation a value proposition. And that value proposition we see across the country in streets, and it was stated very clearly: Black Lives Matter. It's not a hashtag, it's not a group alone, it's a statement of fact that our lives matter. And in order for our lives matter, it must be reflected in the value proposition policymakers who we vote for take into office and the quality of the public policy they're advancing. There is no one thing that's going to fix the problem of structural racism, which is centuries long, but there is a process to begin to address it. And that's starting with making sure that we're clear about our value proposition. And we have been clear about that value proposition, that our lives matter, that we should be afforded equal protection under the laws. And you move that value proposition to the power at the ballot box, where we collectively leverage our currency. Our currency in a democracy is the vote. And that currency then is translated to individuals who understand our value proposition, who get elected, sit in office. And now it's time for the real work, implementing public policy to address structural racism, to protect our lives, to ensure that equal protection under the law is afforded to our communities, and that our lives, our Black lives, truly matter.
Indeed, folks, we can make that difference if we vote. Folks, once again, here is the closing argument, also on video, courtesy of the NAACP, narrated by Morgan Freeman.
This is Morgan Freeman. I know that many of you are wondering how soon you'll be able to hug your friends again, or visit your parents and grandparents without fear. I know that many of you are angered by the ongoing racism in our nation and worried about having a job to repay your student loans and afford the basic needs of life. It wasn't long ago that people were beaten and even killed to obtain the sacred power each of you have today, the power to vote. And right now, your vote is more critical than ever. This election is about you and me, your family and my family, our planet, and our democracy in its entirety. With our votes, we, the people, can begin to overwhelm the unjust political and economic systems that favor profits over people, and elect leaders who will take us forward. Brothers and sisters, go vote. Our lives, quite literally, depend on it.
The latest video, the closing argument video for the NAACP. Derrick, we want to thank you as always. I'm noticing over your shoulder a book with the picture of a member of my extended family, Clarence Mitchell Jr. Clarence was the personal attorney, in addition to being the head of the Washington Bureau of the NAACP. He was Medgar and Murley Evers' personal attorney and advisor. One of the most well-known martyrs in the struggle for voting rights was Medgar Evers. And we ought to be reminded of that. That is how sacred tomorrow is. That is how sacred this vote is. People gave their lives for us to have the right to be heard and the right to matter. Right, Derrick?
Absolutely. The argument of the old that people died for the right is a true argument, something that we need to appreciate as a part of our legacy. The argument of the future, if you want a future that's inclusive, you must vote. We can cover you whether or not you don't know history and you want to understand why are certain things happening to you. It's about the vote. If you've seen 8 minutes and 46 seconds of individual in the broad daylight being murdered by police, it's about the vote. If a woman can lay in her bed not causing any harm and be murdered by police, and yet one person is charged with shooting a bullet in the wall, it's about the vote. Because in all of those scenarios, those individuals who made those decisions were elected. Let's turn out to vote.
That's right, folks. Tomorrow, spread the word. Check on your loved ones. Make sure they're okay. And if there are any issues, be sure to contact 866-OUR-VOTE, 866-OUR-VOTE. Dial that number if you have any problems, any concerns. If you see anything, use video camera. I had some folk call me from Florida, Derrick, and they said some white kids showed up with baseball bats at a black polling place. I said, well, did y'all check out your camera? And they didn't. We can't respond to it if you don't video it. Post it on social media. Let's all look out for each other. Everyone is deputized to do just that. The oldest and the boldest civil rights organization that we have is the NAACP. Derrick Johnson is the president. Thank you, brother. As always.
Thank you. Take care. Now continue the good work.
That's right. You too, my brother. All right.
And election night coverage, you'll be on there.
That's right. Yeah, very important. We'll be with the NAACP for special election night coverage as well. Almost forgot. Tomorrow night, 7 Eastern. Also on your social media, particularly Facebook. And thankful to Ed Gordon and Albert Blankson for organizing that. So yes, we will see you tomorrow night with Derrick Johnson. All right. Thank you, Derrick.
Take care.
Also to the polls, y'all.
Sing a song.